G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. This time we're going to do a recap on the practice matches that happened this weekend in the AFL. So we'll go through each match and tell you what I think about them, what the teams are looking like. I know you can't read too much into practice matches, but you do get a feel about how a team is feeling. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Remember, this is only my opinion. So we start off here with Hawthorn and Collingwood. Quite a good game and an entertaining game. I think both teams kicked over 100 points. Collingwood look good. They're continuing on what they were doing last year with fast ball movement, taking it out of the back line, lots of pressure, lots of skill. They look all right. Big improvement, or not a big improvement, but a big surprise for me was Hawthorn, that they actually stuck with Collingwood. So I think most people have the Hawks in the bottom three teams, but this young team really showed a bit of grit. I know this won't last for the whole year, but if you're a Hawks supporter, you'd be pretty happy about how the application for the Hawks came out. DeGoey had a really good game for Collingwood. I'm hoping this year that we might actually see him play a full year. We've never actually seen him play fully fit or not really try for the whole year. So hopefully this year we can see him on the fly. I think he kicked 3 goals or something, or he did a lot. Anyway, he had a big game. Dacos had a good game as well. So it'd be interesting to see how Collingwood go. Like I said, you'd be more than happy with if you're a Collingwood supporter. At least they're competitive, which is a good thing. I've got them missing the 8, only just. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the first couple of weeks. I only say that because last year they won 10 games under a goal, and I don't think they can do that again. But anyway, they won this game by a goal, so they're keeping that train going, and it's always good to have in the team that attitude that you can win from anywhere. But good game, and both of these teams' supporters would be happy. So let's have a look at the next one. Our next game for the weekend was Freo and Port. Very dour game. I only watched 2 quarters of it and then turned it off. It was pretty boring, to be quite honest with you. Very disappointed with Port. I actually have put Port into my top 8, but I'm starting to rethink that decision after watching them play. Freo, again, you don't know with Freo which Freo is going to show up. Sometimes they're awesome, and then for 10 minutes they turn into, I don't know, the old city bus again. They look weak, and then all of a sudden they turn it on. So if we saw the patches that they could do last year, a couple of their games last year, I think they played the best football of anybody. So again, I saw little patches of it here, but nothing to amaze me. Now Port, on the other hand, they've got so much talent, and I don't know what's going on in that club. Hinkley must be under the pump this year. If they lose 4 or 5 games early this year, I think he's going to go. But like I said, they've got some really great kids. Port, they've got the Rosies, and you know, they should be making the 8 with the talent that they've got on their list. But I was really disappointed in them this game. Again, it's just a practice game. You can't read too much into it. But we'll find out about Port in the first round, because they have to play my team, the Lions, and we'll see how they go against a top 4 team. If they get smashed by the Lions, you can pretty much rule out Port for the rest of the year. But anyway, both supporters of these clubs would be disappointed. I don't think if you're a Freo supporter, you'd be too happy with what you saw. If you're a Port supporter, you wouldn't be too happy either. Okay, so let's have a look at our next one. So the Lions and the Cats played each other. The Lions looked really good, looked really quick. They looked fit. They looked big. They look like they've got their motor going. Added in a couple of new players that might just bolster them. Move the chess pieces around a bit. Like we've got Rayner now in half back. But yeah, the Lions look switched on. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Ashcroft looks fantastic. He reminds me of a young Gary Ablett. If he keeps going in that trajectory, well, anything's possible for him. But yeah, it looks like a really balanced team this year for the Lions. Joey looks as fit as I've ever seen him, ever since he started playing football. And adding in Gunston's going to help in the forward line. The Cats did look a little bit slow, but we've been saying that about the Cats for 20 years. They always produce a decent team. Admittedly, they didn't have any of their forward line in this game, so they were missing most of their big stars. But they did look a little bit slow at some times. They looked like they just come out of the nightclub, as though that they've still been partying since the premiership. But there's no way in the world that you could write off the Cats. They've got an absolutely superb team, absolutely superb list. Their list management is second to none. And if you're a Cat supporter, you're exactly where you were for the last 20 years, looking at a competitive team that is going to get the job done. But good game by the Lions. Let's hope that we can continue that into round one and beat Port Adelaide by a big margin, and then we'll really see where we are against the better teams. And anyway, that's the Cats and the Lions. So Essendon played St Kilda on the weekend, and pretty dour affair by both teams. I can't see either of these teams making the 8. I have seen some luminaries in the AFL say that they rate St Kilda quite highly. I don't. I think that I know that with Ross Lyons taking over as coach, that they're going to be more competitive, but I don't see their weapons. I've noticed last year that 80% of their goals come from within the square because they've got such a small forward line. They have to keep handballing it forward, and then they run in and all that sort of stuff. King, I don't rate both the Kings. I don't think they're very good at all. I think they're too basketball-y. They're not football. They haven't grown up playing football, so they're big men, but they're not big like you really need to do to be a full forward. Their kicking skills are terrible, and I just can't see that they might come up and kick 4 or 5 goals in one game, but I can't see them kicking 60, 70 goals. Both the King brothers I'm talking about here. All right, so yeah, and Essendon was absolutely disgraceful. They kicked 3 goals, 14. So it looks like it's going to be another year for Essendon watching netball. So again, we got every year we listen from management and staff at Essendon saying, "Oh, give us time. We're young and we're going to do." They've been saying that for 20 years now. I don't hear any other club turn around and make excuses. They just go out and do it. But yeah, I can't see Essendon. I think they won about 7 or 8 games last year. I think they'll struggle to win 3 this year. But anyway, that's what my opinion is. I don't think either of these teams have a final 8's ambition. Okay, let's go on to the next one. All right, so here we are with the Swannies and the Navy Blues, Carlton. So the Swannies look in good nick again, as they always do. They look quick. They're a little bit small, but they make up with it with skill and tackling and speed. John Longmire, the horse, just re-signed for another 2 years, so that takes him over 20 years as coach. So that's a good thing for them because he always produces a good team. Like I said, they look good. Swans, they look switched on. Not so much for Carlton. Carlton looked like a rabble at times. Sydney just ran through their defence a couple of times without even putting up a look. I know Carlton have got a couple of injuries to key players, but they've got to use their depth. So I think a lot of people, again, the luminaries in the AFL, have Carlton in the top 4. I don't know how, but they do. couple of people are saying Curno's the best player, will win the Coleman. I can't see that either. I think there's much better forwards in the game than Curno. But Carlton, if you're a Carlton supporter, you'd be quite disappointed with what you saw on the weekend. If you're a Swan supporter, you'd be more than happy. It's more of the same for the Swans. And anyway, there we go for Sydney and Carlton. So the West Coast took on Adelaide Crows. I don't know what's going on with the West Coast. Everyone's predicting that they're going to rise. From what I saw in this game, I think they're going to go worse, which is pretty bad, seeing last year they only won 2 games. With all the talent and all the All Australians and Premiership players in their team, I don't think they're fit, to be quite honest. I think there's a culture of not being fit or being lazy. But really surprised with Adelaide. Adelaide did a fantastic job in this game. I know it's weak opposition, but Adelaide always give you try. They always give you a good performance. Even if they don't have the cattle, they'll still chase, they'll still tackle. They've always produced good teams in Adelaide. So, yeah, and they're a team of no-names, so which is a good thing. If you're, like I remember being a Lions supporter, you know, people like Voss and Lappin and Ackermanis, they never got any credit because they didn't live in Melbourne. So for, you know, for the first 4 or 5 years of their career, they were nobodies in Melbourne. And I would say they're probably the 3 best players who have ever played the game in the last 20 years. Adelaide have got some really good players that have moved on, like Ben Keys. I really like their ruckman. He's a workman-like ruckman. And they've got a couple of big forwards, Fogarty. I don't know them all, but like I said, they're no-names. The back line seem to stand up quite well, but they're running hard, they're chasing hard, and that's all you can ask from your football team. Add in a couple of little bright sparks. My wife's best favourite player is not a Lions player, it's actually an Adelaide player, Rochelle. But yeah, they look like they could really go up. I think they won 8 games last year. So if they can do that again and improve, if they can get 3 or 4 wins extra than that, they might push a spot into the 8. But anyway, that's them. West Coast supporters, you are knitting this year. That's about all you can do. And Adelaide supporters, you're probably thinking we're onto a good little team here in the next couple of years. Okay, so now we've got the Giants versus the Suns. I think this happened on Sunday. So again, a really scrappy affair. The orange Ferrari is not purring. It's running on about a cylinder and a half. They've still got lots of talent at the GWS, but they never seem to do too much. Again, I think they have too many good players and not enough players that actually get in and get the ball. Suns would be pretty disappointed with their output from the game. Again, they're not, this is just a practice match. You can tell just by the highlights on this that it only goes for about 4 minutes, so it just shows you what kind of game it was like. Suns have got a good couple of players. They've lost a good couple of players. They just need another 2. They need 2 really top-notch players to really cement themselves in the 8. So you'd be a little bit disappointed if you're Suns. I've got the Suns right just on 9. So if they can have a good year and they can actually keep the pressure up for the whole year, not just start well, they do have a sneaky chance of making the 8. But again, looking at the form that they've put out this time, it's going to be tough for them again. They're basing their team around Matt Rowell. I know he's a good little player. He's a handy player, but he's not a superstar. They need a superstar. He gets in and gets the ball, but he hasn't got too many skills. He hasn't got acceleration. He's just a good old-fashioned footballer. Tuke Miller is probably one of the best players in the league, if not the best. So need another good year from him. he is just a ball magnet and got all the skills. So another tough year for the Suns, another tough year for the GWS. So if you are a GWS supporter, which I highly doubt because they've only got 3, you'd be pretty disappointed about what you saw. If you're a Sun supporter, which I doubt it because they've got 5, you'd also be pretty disappointed about what happened. But anyway, let's have a look at the next one. Okay, so Western Bulldogs v the Roos. So pretty easy hit out for the Dogs. We all know that North are missing some cattle in the talent department. Bulldogs should easily destroy North Melbourne, and they look pretty silky smooth to the Bulldogs. So they've still got a really good list, the Bulldogs. They've added in Lob. They've got this Jaeger O'Meara, not Jaeger O'Meara, Jaeger Ugle-Hagan. So he looks like he's a bit of a find for them. I think taking Dunkley out of the middle might actually help the Bulldogs. Let a few of them free. So Bulldogs have always had a pretty strong midfield and with lots of depth. So taking Dunkley out might give players like Treloar and Bailey Smith a bit more continuity in the midfield, which is what they've been lacking. I think they found a couple of decent backmen as well this year, but they look the goods. A couple of pundits have said that they're expecting them to be top 6. I can't see that myself. They do have a lot of good players. I like their one of my favourite players actually is English. Team English, their ruckman. I really rate the guy. I wonder whether Lob's going to do anything for their forward line, but they do have a tall forward line. So good things for the Dogs. I wish they'd stop the whinging and, Bevo always whinging about everything. They're always the world's against them instead of just getting on with the game and getting on with what they need to do. But anyway, pretty soft little run for the Dogs playing North Melbourne. North Melbourne, again, we don't expect too much from North Melbourne. Okay, they're rebuilding. They're going through. They've probably lost their best player in the young guy. And they've got a couple of other problems going on there off field. But anyway, we don't expect too much from North. So if you're a North supporter, you'd be more than happy about what's happening. But yeah, there's a bit of an upside there for the Dogs. Okay, and our last game was Melbourne versus the Tigers. So the D's against the Tigers. I've been watching Melbourne very closely, and they look fantastic. They all look fitter. They all look bigger. They're all running. They look like they've got their mojo back. Last year they were still, like I said, getting out of the nightclub from the premiership win, and they still won their first 10 straight. Now I've looked at the draw. They play the Lions in the second round. So that's going to be a big game, not only for the Lions, but also for Melbourne. We'll really see whether they stack up again. I think they do. It's going to be an extremely tough game for the Lions, even though that we look all right. But I haven't seen Melbourne look this keen for a year, and they've got talent to burn. Petrarca looks like he's put on about another 10 kilos. Ollie looks like a man against boys, and the new Grundy situation could really push a lot of the lesser teams' back line. At some points here during this game that Richmond just couldn't contain the run and the push through. Melbourne just streamed forward and kicked goals. Richmond didn't look switched on to me. They looked a bit overweight. They looked like they were run out of puff really quickly. They couldn't take tackles. They couldn't take on the game. I think they lost Prestia or something. Prestia dislocated his shoulder, which is not a help. A lot of people have got Richmond in the top 6 as well, but I think they were totally outclassed by Melbourne. And if Melbourne continue to play with this, I think they're quite willing, um, quite acceptable to be #1 favourites. They look absolutely fantastic. They look switched on. And like I said, if they can get 60 goals out of Gawn and Grundy, beware, because they've got lots of other opportunities to score. So if you're a Melbourne supporter, you'd be up on the edge of your seat waiting for the first round. Second round, when you play the Lions, they will give you a really good indication about where the team is and where the pressure rating is. Richmond, I think you've got a bit of nail biting to do after watching this. Again, it's just a pre-season practice match, but I always like to see my team try no matter what they're playing. I don't care if they're playing tiddlywinks. But anyway, Melbourne looking the goods. So let's recap on who I think are the biggest winners. So definitely Melbourne, they look the goods. Lions look silky smooth, look nice and fit, just like Melbourne. Hawthorn for being a team that everyone is going to say can't win a game, but really stuck it to Collingwood. If they keep playing like that, it's going to be a good year for Hawthorn. They did win 8 games last year, mind you. Adelaide looked really good with their no-name team. So look for them to be a bit of a sneaky chance to make the 8 if they can keep up that effort that they always do. And the Bulldogs look quite good as well. Losers from what I've seen so far, who's not going forward? Carlton would have to be the biggest one. They didn't look anywhere near as good as what they should be. With the talent that they've got running around, they've got a Brownlow medalist running around through their midfield. Yeah, they didn't look anywhere near where they need to be. Fremantle as well. Fremantle was not the silky train that we saw for 5 or 6 games last year. So they would be going through the videos right now. Port definitely didn't look as good as what I thought they should be on paper. But hopefully they can turn it round. Otherwise, Hinkley will be gone. Who else didn't perform? West Coast. Jesus Christ, how bad can West Coast actually get? But they look like they're going to have another terrible year. I thought North Melbourne might win the wooden spoon, but I'm changing my mind to West Coast. They'd be lucky to win a game. And is there anyone else? Essendon. There we go. Essendon fans must be livid with how many years they've gone on with this stuff. But anyway, like I said, this is my opinion. I've only been watching this game for 40 years, so it's not like I know everything about it. But I do have a key. I watch most games every week, and I watch players. My father played, I played, my brothers played. We all were a football family. So if you liked the video and you've got a comment, please leave it down below. If you agree with something or you disagree, tell me why, and we will catch you in the next video. See you then.